Growing up as a kid in the United States is being taught that you were born in the greatest country in the world and that this is a place of absolute freedom and that we are so lucky to be here, and that Canada is our lame upstairs neighbor. They're like kind of like us, but they're just like too nice, and essentially like the propaganda is that Canada is just like lame. I'm not even joking. And then you grow up and think for yourself and like travel the world and you realize how fucking crazy this place is.
American propaganda works so well because it's subtle, right? If you look at California, the instances of violent crime are much higher than the instances of violent crime in New Mexico, yet California is deemed the safer state because when we measure crime, we use crime rate. It's what percentage of a certain population is committing this crime, right? And so when you look at illegal immigration, it is almost never framed in rate. It's always the nominal number. They'll say in 2000, we had 7 million undocumented immigrants, and now currently we have about 13 million undocumented immigrants. That's because of the population growth. But the unauthorized immigration rate in 2024 under Kamala Harris open borders are rules was 3%, about the same number it was in 2000. In 1890, that number was 16%. So even if it was an issue, which I don't think it is stabilized completely. But you'll let media tell you like, oh no, there's Mexicans in New Mexico. Like, what are we even doing?
I think that propaganda works so well because, for one, we're taught these ideas from like such a young age, you know what I mean? And a lot of other statistics are very skewed to support a certain idea that the media wants us to like believe. And a lot of people are just very closed-minded and not open to believing things, and they only want to believe in things that reinforce the ideas they already like have created in their mind, you know what I mean?
The reason why misinformation in the United States spreads so easily amongst Americans is because most Americans don't understand this simple rule when it comes to research. And that rule is looking out for confounding factors. If you don't know what that is, basically a confounding factor is when there's like a hidden or like phantom third variable that actually makes the correlation between two things more reasonable. So a very basic example that they'll teach you in school is the coffee causes cancer example. So if you actually read the research and do a deep dive of the research, it's not the coffee causing cancer. It's actually that coffee drinkers are also more likely to smoke, and that smoking, which is the confounding factor, is the reason why more and more coffee drinkers are getting cancer. Sounds simple enough, but so many Americans don't do this for whatever godforsaken reason. So this sounds simple, but people do this all the time, especially when it comes to politics. So people will be like, black people are only 13% of the population, but cause 50% of the crimes. Well, that's because black areas are policed a lot heavier. If we started flooding your neighborhood with police and started taking everyone to jail over the smallest things, those numbers would even out. But like I said, a lot of Americans are too lazy to actually do some reading and do some digging to figure out the actual causes of these numbers.
To be honest, that's true, because I also noticed that like a lot of like ideas that are tied with one another, they don't really have like a strong correlation. I feel like it's just like coincidence is seen as correlation, you know what I mean? Or is or like what he said, confounding factors.
In 2025, America had the largest murder drop-off rate ever recorded. That is a fact. You can look it up. And yet nobody's talking about this. When I found this out a couple of weeks ago, I'll admit I found it hard to believe as well. And then I actually researched it and found out it was true. So I went and told some people. All the people that I told got defensive and said, no, that is not true. Like they almost got angry at it, as if they didn't want that to be a true statistic. Wouldn't you want something good like that to be a reality? The truth doesn't matter anymore in our society, especially as it relates to politics. The only thing that matters is what reinforces our pre-existing beliefs, and both the left and the right do this.
This is a very true thing, because I notice it like when talking to people, even like on not serious topics. It's just people only believe in what they already want to believe, and this is called anchor bias. So this next video is going to go in depth on that. So
A lot of people don't realize that the reason why they think about certain social and political topics the way they do is because of this thing called anchor bias. Anchor bias is so dangerous because if you're not conscious of it, you will fall victim to it, and it works so quickly. So please watch this video all the way through and send it to your friends, because obviously our society is crumbling and the only way to fight against it is by understanding what's going on. The concept of anchor bias is really simple. Basically, it's just saying that the first time you interact with a piece of information about a person, place, thing, or idea will shape your perception.
Yeah, so basically what she's saying, right, or like just to add on to what I was saying earlier, so the first time you see an idea or whatever you agree with, you're gonna like subconsciously think that's the truth no matter what. And a lot of people are very closed-minded, so they're not open to like things that change their perception of what is right, wrong, or true. You know what I mean?
Of said person, place, thing, or idea. And this is exactly the reason why news organizations race to get their headlines out first, because they get to control the narrative. They get to control the first time you interact with that story and how you view that story moving forward. Speed is currency in this case, but unfortunately that speed is outweighing accuracy, which should be much more important, because the information that we're receiving and digesting will shape the way that we interact with people in real life. I'm going to use George Floyd as an example here, since that's something that a lot of us are familiar with. Let's just imagine someone is a blank slate. They haven't heard about this case at all, and the first headline or story or video that they see about George Floyd isn't about him having a knee in the neck. It's about him overdosing on fentanyl and the case being a sham and the officer having done nothing wrong at all. Well, I mean, the headline would be a more condensed version of that, but the story overall is saying that. Now, that information isn't necessarily true, but that person's first interaction with this story, with this case, is that George Floyd was in the wrong and that he overdosed on drugs, and that Black people are making a big stink or a big show about something that isn't really the police force's fault. And that could impact their perception of the Black Lives Matter movement as a whole. Or them thinking that police brutality isn't that big of an issue and therefore people are just being dramatic. Even if they receive additional information after that first story or headline or video that they watched, they're going to be more skeptical of the additional information that they received, because the first one that they saw, the first thing that they read is the authority. And that's the reason why all these companies and media outlets, they want to get the story out first. And as a journalism major, trust me, I know we are taught we have to be accurate, but we also want to get that story.
To be honest, I never realized that's why they want to get it out so quick. But now that like she's explaining it very well, it makes a lot of sense to me. That's why like as soon as an event happens and I search it up, all these news thingies like got it up, and then it's like it's been so close to the event happening. It's like you can't have fully accurate information yet. You know what I mean? It's just they just want to control the narrative.
Out first, because getting to control the narrative gives you a lot of power. And all of us at some point in time have fallen victim to anchor bias. I'm not exempt. You're not exempt. Even the people running these media companies are not exempt, which is why when it comes to social media, a place where we have an oversaturation of information and news and stories and headlines, it's important to remember that our perceptions may be impacted by the first time we interacted with that person, place, thing, or idea. And sometimes it might be a little uncomfortable, but it calls for us to identify whether or not we are applying prejudice, bias, discrimination, or any of those things to the people we interact with or the way that we talk about certain topic areas. Please remember this when you are reading the news or scrolling on social media, because I promise being cognizant of your biases helps combat them. And do not forget that words are actions. So even if you think this won't make you like act out towards a certain group or be a horrible person towards a certain group, it can still impact the way that you talk to them and talk about them, and those can be harmful. So yeah, hopefully this helps. Hopefully you learned something new. I learned about this topic today, so it was really interesting and I just wanted to share. And I'm going to talk about a lot more different bias areas that I learned about as well, because they're both fascinating and very important for us to know, since we need to be vigilant about fixing our society.
To be honest, great information she gave us, but also her last line saying she just learned about this today. I feel like, because she said she was a journaling major, I feel like this is something that you would learn when you're getting your journaling major, but I don't know.
The more entertaining your propaganda, the better it works. Right off the bat, I don't think most people understand that propaganda is like a really broad term for any message with a political inclination to it that you are giving to the masses with the intent to change people's minds. It can be good, it can be bad, it can even be neutral. Propaganda is just like, if you want people to vote for free school lunches for kids, and you put out a commercial that makes that seem like a good idea, that's propaganda. If you're like, well, that makes most things propaganda, then.
Yeah, well, I feel like propaganda is just anything that's trying to push an idea that like benefits a group or other group. You know what I'm saying? But also, I get free lunches at school, so I mess with that.
Like the police have one of the greatest propaganda campaigns ever. Because the police procedural is one of the greatest 45-minute entertainment blocks we've ever figured out. It just works really well to introduce a crime and then introduce people who are investigating that crime. And then over 45 minutes, you unveil who did what. And then maybe you put some courtroom drama at the end. I know so many staunch leftists who hate the police with every fiber of their being, who still watch Law and Order because they can't stop watching Law and Order. Most of the Marvel movies are propaganda to the point where they directly work with the United States military and the United States.
Oh, bro, what's it called? That's Captain Marvel. Because I read an article about that in AP Lang. It's like the military gets to choose and change things that happens in the movie to make their image look better or whatever they want to be portrayed as. So then that's like, obviously, why would the military allow themselves to be portrayed in a negative way on such a large scale like a Marvel movie? You know what I mean? So obviously, it's going to be influenced to make them look better. And the whole intention of the Captain Marvel movie, I heard from this article, was that it's to incentivize younger women to join the Air Force.
Military has final say on the project as to what gets into or out of the final cut. Stop ruining my take! Captain Marvel directly had a recruitment campaign, and it was very successful. The Top Gun series, just those two movies, are some of the most successful propaganda the United States Navy has ever produced. Every time they put out a particularly successful war movie, recruitment goes up. People go to the movies and they watch really heroic scenes of stuff and they go, I want to do that. And then they go and find a recruiter and they get screwed over. Yeah, it'll be just like Hacksaw Ridge. Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can make you a medic. Oh, you loved Top Gun? Yeah, just sign on the dotted. And once you get through the normal training, we'll be sure to accelerate you into the fighter pilot program. Yeah, you'll be a Top Gun in no time. Come on, kids, join the war. It's just like the Marvel movies. Oh my God, they recruit on Twitch now. So just let that rattle around in the noodle. Yeah, on Fortnite. Fortnite is got recruiters playing with the kids. This is all to say, one of the things I don't think anyone ever talks about is that Fox News is very entertaining. I know people don't like to compliment things they don't like. It's just like, I don't like to admit that Donald Trump is one of the most fascinating human beings that I have ever seen. I don't like that when he talks, I am fascinated. I can't really watch him anymore, but like, I'll admit, in the beginning, when he would go up there and just ramble through some dumb speech about like nuclear weapons, I just sit there and be like, wow, what is wrong with this guy? But just because I have a part of me that is like, haha, the things he's saying are dumb, the part of me that's like, drawn in, that's his charisma. Stop ruining my takes. There's a reason he was a successful game show host, because he's fun to watch be a buffoon. And Fox News is like if Michael Bay made the news. Like, if you haven't watched it in a while, the banners and the graphics, and it's just so much visual noise and actual noise. Like, I don't know if it's gotten to the point where like a bald eagle screams across the screen, dragging an American flag to switch between the various white people screaming at the screen. But it's close. Like, every banner is like a waving American flag with like, attention, terrorism, and blah, blah, blah. And then like, there's like another banner that's like, the stock market's gonna kill your mom. And then some guy gets on there and he looks constipated and he's like, you're not gonna fucking believe what the president did. And you're like, what did the president do? Not only is he a senile old man who doesn't know anything, but he's about to start World War III because of his mastermind. And you're like, wow, no way, he's both weak and strong? Oh, that's scary and historically something that has worked to rile up the masses. Tell me more. And they're like, let's cut to this general whose troops didn't like him. while he tells you some not very true things about how things are going with the military. You know, that thing that you love but also hate. Because they have guns and tanks and jets, and that's fucking awesome. But they also let women in now, and they had to change some of the uniforms because they get pregnant sometimes. And the Navy SEALs, oh my God, just thinking about makes me want to. But also, one of them was trans once, so that's not okay. And then, like, 17 identical looking women say something about the economy, and then it cuts back to, like, an angry white guy screaming. And, like, let's just be honest. Most of the 90s comedy was white men screaming. It's successful. People like watching that. Sometimes it's funny, you know. I enjoyed some Lewis Black when I was growing up. I enjoyed watching him, you know. Although I do think I should draw attention to the fact that Jewish people have a very good reason to scream, separated from white supremacy. So just wanted to lay that right there, you know, let that stew. Maybe Lewis Black wasn't the best example, but when I think of screaming in the 90s, he immediately came to mind. That's because everyone else was just copying him, as I'm sort of doing right now. Anyway, moving on. Fox News works because it's entertaining. I mean, it's labeled as entertainment. They're not even the news. And I just think we got to remember that. We got to remember that propaganda works because it's fun to watch, because it makes you feel stuff. Like, I really feel like people don't want to acknowledge that, like, even if you know that it's propaganda, it'll still make you feel the feelings in your ape brain. Again, a lot of staunch leftists watch Law and Order. Bum, bum. Also, Star Trek brings a ton of people into the military. It's the closest thing you're going to get to Starfleet. People go to the sub program because the sub school's apparently just like the Starfleet Academy. Sometimes it's like good. A lot of Star Trek causes people to go become doctors and engineers and scientists. So, you know, yay there. But I think people need to start, when they're enjoying their programming, to recognizing the feelings that it causes in them. Go watch Top Gun Maverick, and whatever that feeling is, try to get in the headspace and feel that feeling and recognize that's why people join the military. Whatever that is. I don't know why it comes from Tom Cruise. I don't. But when you put that man into a fighter jet, I experienced the horrors of war, and I watched Top Gun Maverick, and I'm like, I'd do it again. I gotta, like, tamp that down. I gotta be like, what is that? What is that feeling? But it's there. It's there, and we need to acknowledge it. Also, something about mustaches. Cops, the military, other things. Yeah, some there. Propaganda mustaches. That's what we're in the video. Have a great day, everybody. Germany, World War II, mustache. Stop ruining the take!
Yeah, to be honest, this guy, I mean, he had some pretty good points, you know what I mean? Like how it's entertaining and stuff like that. And then also brought up the idea of like Captain Marvel and how the military ties into movies and stuff. But he did start yapping for a little bit. And it kind of irritated me, I'm not gonna lie. But next video.
Listen up, because this is extremely important. Propaganda is not trying to convince you of what you think it is trying to convince you. Most people see propaganda and they think its objective is to get you to believe in the position that it is espousing. For example, let's take all of those anti-abortion billboards that we see everywhere. You know, the ones with little pictures of babies, and they say, oh, well, the heartbeat can be detected at X amount of days. Most people see that and think, oh, that billboard is trying to get me to think that abortion is bad. But that's not the billboard's objective. Most of us are actually pro-choice, and most of us look at those billboards and think, wow, that's gross and dumb. I wish that billboard didn't exist.
So it's like tap it into like your subconscious mind. So even if you disagree with it or you agree with it, it still has like a strong effect on you. You know what I mean? Because it's your subconscious mind is getting through your conscious mind and is getting into your subconscious mind. You know what I'm saying?
And a lot of us stop thinking about it right then and there. We say, haha, they put up a billboard that's dumb and ineffective, and therefore they wasted their money. But they didn't. Because again, propaganda is not trying to convince you of its position. It is trying to convince you that the position they hold is normal enough to broadcast everywhere. They are trying to get you.
Ooh, sorry for pausing a lot. But so if the person that sees the billboard disagrees with it, they're going to obviously disagree with it. But in their mind, they're going to think, oh, th- like this must be normal to like a lot of people because it's being shown like this and supported by so many people. You know what I mean? So then maybe it opens up that little door in their head to be a little open, more minded about it, or something like that. I guess.
To believe that their position is a standard position, a normalized position that at least you can talk about openly and not face repercussions. You see billboards and flyers and commercials and all of this propaganda pushing a single position, and you start to think, well, maybe I don't agree with that, but I guess a lot of people do because I keep seeing people saying this everywhere. But the thing is, it's not people saying it. It's usually some organization that has a whole lot of money to crank out propaganda left and right. Because once again, most people are actually pro-choice. However, despite the fact that most people are pro-choice, we see those billboards and we see the messaging anywhere and everywhere. And we start to wonder if any one person we are talking to actually thinks that we're baby killers. And we might think that that interpretation is dumb and bad. However, socially, we are worried about that interpretation.
Ooh, because then they normalize it by being up. So they're like, oh, thinking like that's normal, but I disagree. So then you feel like the odd one out.
And so we make our views quieter, which amplifies the propaganda because now not only are people seeing more of one side of the conversation, they are hearing less of the other side of the conversation. Which means when a politician gets up and holds the side that we do not agree with, we are less likely to be angry with that politician because we go, well, I don't agree with that policy stance, but that seems to be mainstream politics. And I'm going to focus on the one or two things that I do agree with them on over their opponent. So once again, propaganda is not trying to convince you of its position. It's trying to convince you that its position is mainstream. And unfortunately, there is only one way to fight propaganda. It is with counter propaganda. However, people like you and me don't have millions of dollars to pay for billboards and commercials and social media ads. We have to rely on just word of mouth, which can be really scary at first because remember, one of the objectives of the initial propaganda is to convince anyone who disagrees with that position that they might be ridiculed, attacked, or hell, even imprisoned for having opposing views. But once enough people are loud enough and frequent enough with the opposition messaging, the initial propaganda starts to fall apart. We saw this with Palestine. We saw that as we started to become louder and start to push out what was actually happening on the ground more and more and more, Israel's propaganda, which had been dominant across the entire globe since its inception, started to crumble. Which also explains why it was Israel's response to just push out more and more lies. They were trying to recapture the majority of the propaganda out there. They knew that after we saw the rotting corpses of premature babies in a hospital, that they were never going to reconvince us of their superiority. However, they did believe and still do believe that they can shame us back into silence by making it seem like they are still the majority position, that they are a mainstream position to have. But it's not working because we, the people, are continuing to speak up. We are continuing to make sure that we are each individually part of a people's propaganda machine. And we could apply this to basically any issue. We can apply it to reproductive care. We can negate all those dumb billboards if we are our own billboards within our communities, consistently speaking up when and where we can. But we can think even bigger than that. We can re-seize our governmental systems for the people if we start speaking up about the fact that that is what we all want to have happen. Revolution is quickly becoming the majority position in people's hearts, but people will not act and will not move if they continue to feel like they might not be mainstream. So if you're sitting there reading all of these Epstein files and thinking, oh my God, how do we get all of these powerful people out of here? Well, we start by speaking up about it. And you do not have to be incredibly articulate. You do not have to have new original thoughts. In fact, it's better if you kind of don't. Sure, it's great to see a creator with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers, excellently put together a very researched, articulate point. But what is also effective is seeing 20 other small creators with maybe 100 followers saying basically the same thing or a boiled down version of it. Because when you see that one big creator say that thing, you might think, oh, well, that's just that person's niche. But when you see 20 other average people also agreeing with that position, you go, oh, this is a movement. This is something that the people are behind. Maybe I need to get behind it too. All of that is to say, speak the fuck up. Anywhere and everywhere you can, speak the fuck up. If you do not use your voice, they will use it against you.
Yeah, to be honest, I always hear people talking about like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, but nobody ever acts, you know what I mean? And also another point that he just talked about, how like when you see one creator, you're like, it could just be him, could just be his supporters, but then when it's a bunch of smaller creators, then you're like, oh, this is for real. That never really clicked in my head, but that is how I think also, because I mean, if it's just one person, then you're just like, oh, it's just this person, and they already have a lot of supporters because they're already big. But then when you see all the smaller creators, it validates that idea, and it just makes it a lot stronger. But let's get into this next video. Hope you guys are enjoying it so far.
There's just so much information flying around right now. I just don't know who to believe. I don't know who to trust. I don't know if people are using propaganda against me. We don't have to guess. We know how propaganda works. I'm sharing the following information for educational purposes, so you can protect yourself and so you can know what not to do to other people. To understand propaganda, we need to go to the architect of modern propaganda. His name was that. I'm not going to speak it out loud because this is a despicable human being. He was the minister of propaganda for the Schmatzi party. The reason we look at him and his ideas and how he did what he did is because this was the most successful example in modern history we have of propaganda and how freaking dangerous it is. Scholars will tell you that this guy had 11 basic principles of propaganda and how he got away with doing what he did and how he manipulated people so profoundly.
So she's talking about scholars, but she's just using ChatGPT and just reading it over, I think. I mean, like, that doesn't invalidate her points or whatever, but you know what I mean.
Profoundly to lead to so much violence. I honestly didn't want to make this video, but there's some people out there who need to hear this right now. Principle of propaganda number 1, simplification. Reducing complex issues to a single conflict between good versus evil, us versus them, creating a single enemy. Principle number 2, repetition. Constantly repeat slogans, messages, or ideas to create familiarity and embed them in public consciousness. Principle number 3, create a big lie. Tell a lie so colossal that people will believe it simply because they assume that no one in their right mind would have the audacity to say something so outrageous if it wasn't true. Principle of emotional appeal. Target emotions such as fear, anger, or pride over and above rational thought to provoke a response. Principle of displacement. Shift frustrations and social problems onto a scapegoat, making that group the cause of all the problems. Principle of unanimity. The bandwagon effect suggests that everyone is on board with this message and encourage conformity, marginalize anyone who dissents or protests. Principle of orchestration. Present propaganda through multiple channels, radio, print, film, posters, creating a coordinated, consistent message so everywhere you look, you see the same thing. Principle of black and white arguments. Frame issues as binary. There's no middle ground or compromise, only extremes. Right or wrong, friend or enemy. Principle of contagion. Present opposing viewpoints or dissenters as dangerous or contagious, discouraging people from interacting with them. Principle of timing. Release propaganda messages strategically when the audience is most susceptible to persuasion or when events provide a timely pretext. Finally, principle of truth twisting. Incorporate partial truths to make falsehoods more convincing, presenting facts in ways that fit the desired narrative while ignoring inconvenient details. Now, here's the thing. In order for propaganda to be truly successful, you have to whittle down people's trust of journalists, because journalists and the media are the ultimate whistleblowers and accountability mechanisms that we have. Before anything gets to Congress or lawmakers or even the criminal justice system, oftentimes journalists will be the first line of defense calling foul on something that somebody's doing. That's why freedom of the press is so important. You can't have a free society without a free press. And if you can whittle down people's trust in the media, if you can whittle down people's trust in journalists in particular, you can get them to listen to just you. Then you become the sole source of information. And where's the accountability? Oh, you don't need any because you are the grand master of all knowledge and truth. When you see people attacking the press, you see people attacking journalists, that should be your first clue that they are up to some of this. That does not mean we can't criticize journalists for being biased or unfair. You can absolutely and should absolutely do that and hold journalists accountable. But beware anyone who says, I am the only source of information and all of those other people are lying to you. All of them. I am the only one who you can ultimately trust. Because people pushing propaganda do not want you to look under the hood. They do not want you to ask them hard questions. They will evade and dodge. They will demonize and scapegoat. They will point to everyone else as being the source of the problem and never themselves. They will rarely apologize unless it gets them something they want. They do not want you to look at data and statistics because that would erode your trust in them, which means it would erode their control over you. And the last thing I'll offer is this. Anyone pushing propaganda, you know what they want? They want you to be confused. They want you to believe that the truth is unattainable. They want you to be so inundated with so much information that you will become overwhelmed and disengaged in your own future, in your own mind. Masters of propaganda want you disengaged from your community. When they start demonizing your neighbors, they want you too checked out to care. You have been warned. This is what propaganda looks like. Now, what are you going to do with that information?
Hey guys, this isn't my typical videos that I be posting and videos I react to, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments, you know what I mean? These are all pretty fascinating topics, I'm not gonna lie. And all the points that were in the last TikTok, they were kind of hit in each of the other TikToks we watched today. But yeah, just let me know what you guys think about the topic. Stay educated, like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. Comment down below your thoughts. Hope you guys all have a great day, great night, great week, yada yada yada. But yeah, peace out, YouTube.